Still on the topic of agriculture, there's the misconception of when we hear of Africa these days, growing up in my days, they would always show you such terrible pictures, flies in children's noses. They would never show you, or the media never showed you the positive side of Africa, because there's so much that isn't known. And when you don't know what you don't know, you really are not knowledgeable. I don't want to say ignorant. So, so coming back to Africa, we hear a lot about food insecurities. And because you're in that field, how and what is being done to, provide food security? What type of sustainable agricultural development is being put into place to create food security for our people?
There's a lot there's a lot of innovation that's happening. I think we're in a fascinating time, right? Things are moving so fast. You have AI. I was just listening to a podcast about how fast generative AI is moving tech and just the whole world, right? And it's, not all of it is penetrating in the agricultural sector in Africa per se, but a lot of it is, right? And so you have a lot of consideration for kind of climate smart agriculture, meaning soil preservation, right? Like, how do we regenerate our soils? They're depleted, right, of the nutrients that they need to be able to grow quality crops at the yields that can actually be to support feeding the continent and feeding the world, right? So there's a lot of work being done around soil health. And when I say a lot is being done around it, I mean like money flows as well, right? So it's not just we're talking about it, it's that more and more kind of climate financing, regenerative kind of soil health financing is taking place, conservation agriculture is taking place as well. So I think that we're moving in the right direction because, I think overall the global food system is at an inflection point. By 2050, this is something we talk about a lot within in the sector, is that 2050, there is going to be a massive population boom. I mean, by 2050, our continent of about, I think, 1.1 billion is going to be 2 billion, right? And that's in less than 30 years, almost a billion extra people. So how do we feed a billion extra people on the continent, right? And part of that is looking at more sustainable methods of agricultural production, because not only is it good for the planet when we improve the way that we are producing our foods, but it's also good for the outcome, i.e. like crops are just going to be better. They're going to be able to grow more crops if we think a little bit and if we kind of change our production patterns. But what has to happen though is information has to flow down. We have to provide a little bit more democratic access to the types of information around agricultural production that will help not only the financing, but people actually change what they're doing, right? Because many farmers, they'll mention, well, we've been doing it this way for generations, right? Culture. And so we're just going to continue. Yeah, and we're just going to continue. And part of that, I get, things are changing all the time. Like you have to do this, and then a year later, no, change it completely. Now you have to, produce it this way. And, farmers, and I think this is true pretty globally, but farmers are not the richest people on earth. Unfortunately, there's a big issue when it comes to farmer income, and not just in Africa. So for farmers to take a risk to change the methods that they are using for production, that's a big risk, right? And so we have to prove to them why they should do that risk. So it's not just on the farmer, it's around the whole ag ecosystem. But guess what? Every single person in this world is part of the ag ecosystem because we all consume food. And so even the decisions that we make on the types of foods that we want to eat, our expectation on how much food should actually cost, where we go to eat and how we consume, like our decision making is also really important when it comes to things like food security and sustainability as well.
If you just enjoyed that video, check out the longer version right here.